Yo.
Hey, man. What's going on?
Not too much. You sound like crystal clear.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah. I don't know why. There was a new update for Discord. Maybe it did something to improve the quality.
Yeah, and I think oh my god, episode spelled wrong again. What the fuck, man?
Where what? Huh?
I never spell episode correctly every single time I put in like the episode title for GarageBand. I spell it wrong every single time.
How do you spell it?
I do I think I do like EPSI. It's just crazy. Like, it's such an easy word to spell, but like I think I'm rushing like half the time. So
yeah, we'll say it's a Freudian slip or something, I guess.
Yeah. What number are we on? 43?
43, yeah.
Okay. My memory serves me well.
Mm.
God damn it, Joe. Yes, I do play games.
Hey everybody, welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You're listening to episode 43 for the week of September 22nd, 2019. I'm your host, Drew. I am joined by Will. What's up, man?
What's going on, Drew?
Dude, this has been
a wild ride.
It has been a wild ride. It's been a wild week, but like, man, the past couple days for me have just been hectic. I haven't had a shower in like over 24 hours.
Oh, God.
And I feel just gross. We've had some people in my house painting for the past 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And they were painting the bathroom. And the walls in the bathroom, as I'm sure you remember, were like really gnarly. They had wallpaper on them. And we tried to rip off some of the wallpaper. And it was done in a way where like it was ripping chunks of the wall off when we were taking it off.
Oh, God.
So we had to get these guys in to like resurface the walls for us. And they put down this compound and we couldn't like get any kind of humidity in the room so it would dry properly. They just finished painting today and it looks awesome. But like, I just really want to shower.
You dirty hamster.
Oh my God. I'm not like a germaphobe, but I am like very hygienic, or at least I try to be. Like, just feeling gross. Like if I walk outside and I'm walking out barefoot, I will not go to bed unless I like wash my feet, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is just really horrible all around.
I think a lot of folks don't wash their feet. There's two types of people, right? Like there's the type of person that washes the actual bottom of their foot in the shower.
Yeah.
And then you have the people that let the suds run off their body and just kind of assume that that's going to clean the bottom of their feet because they're kind of they're stepping in like suds and water. I mean, like I'm like the guy with the washcloth in between the toes, like fucking dental floss. Oh God, that's more extreme than me. I mean, look, yeah. I think at one point I was the guy that was just thinking if I stand in the suds long enough, then the bottom of my feet will be clean. But now I take a loofah and I give them a good once over. That's bachelor Will for you. Yeah. Now that I'm married, Will, it's more of a once over with a loofah. A fucking sudsy pink loofah guy. It's not pink. I think this month it's white. Maybe it's an off-white. So I'm giving the bottom of my feet a once over with an off-white loofah from Target. Sudsy pink loofah.
Oh man, how are you, bud? How are you doing?
I'm well, man. It's Tuesday. It's end of September. We've made it this far. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm really excited for today's episode. There's just a lot to cover, and I think that we've been doing a little bit more gaming, which is exciting as well. Yeah, it's been a very interesting couple weeks gaming wise for me because like I've been going through a schedule change at work and I'm working my normal hours now. So I have a little bit more time at the front half of the day and not a lot that's been going on. I've been trying to get stuff done around the house, but it's been tricky, like adjusting to the sleep schedule and things like that. So I haven't been as productive as I'd like to be, but I have been getting some gaming in.
and that's a good thing, as always. I know you've been getting some gaming in, and we spent last week talking about one of the greatest video game systems of all time, the Sega Dreamcast. So it's been a while since you and I have caught up on like modern gaming.
100%. Yeah, I mean, that you're exactly right. That last episode was such a special one for us that it's time for us to revisit our drawing board and get back to our regular lives of gaming when we can.
Yeah. Well, let's get our normal plugs out of the way, and then we'll get started, man.
Let's go it.
Thanks for everybody joining in and listening to the show. We really appreciate you guys supporting the site. Check us out on the web at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGRPodcast, at WDGRPodcast. You can find us on anywhere you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast app. Just go ahead and search for Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You'll find us there. And come on by and stop in our Discord room. We have a lovely chat with all kinds of like-minded gamers hanging out in it. The link for that will be in the show notes. Come on by and say hi. We appreciate it.
Please do.
So we got some awesome stuff coming up in the near future. Not quite ready to talk about it yet, but I want you guys to just keep an eye out and everything before we'll be making some announcements pretty soon.
Certainly. Very excited for that.
Yeah, man. So let's see here. Well, both of you and I spent quite a bit of time playing Bastion over these past few weeks, and that was our designated indie playthrough.
It certainly was. I mean, Bastion is a very unsuccessful, small little game that no one's ever heard about.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we played it, and it took us a little while, but we got through it, and I'm really curious to hear what you think about this game, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, I think broad brushstrokes. I have kind of mixed feelings for it. I think overall it was good.
Okay,
and I enjoyed my time with the game. I do have critiques for it, of course, but I was playing on the Nintendo Switch, and the majority of the time I spent with it was in handheld mode, just because of when I was available to play it. But I started playing this kind of at a bad time, I feel, because Control came right out maybe, I would say, less than a week after I started playing Bastion. And when I got Control, I dove headfirst into that, and I kind of ignored Bastion for a little while. And I feel bad about that. I feel like, generally speaking, I feel like I'm maybe not giving Bastion the proper full attention it deserved.
Okay, that's fair.
But overall, I think it was a entertaining game that, for its time when this came out, I think it was very important in the indie space. I think it kind of broke ground for getting indie games on consoles. But I think in 2019, I'm not sure it holds up as well as it did.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think those are all like really fair points. The first round of Bastion that I ever played was years and years ago. I think on the PC. It was actually gifted to me from Raph. He had like an extra like Humble Bundle like indie game code or something, and that was one of the games. And played a tiny portion of it on PC and put it to rest and revisited the game on PS4 when it came out. Not really. I don't think it was really remastered. It was more of just like a little bit of like a slight improvements here and there for the PS4 version.
Yeah.
So I did not play it like when it was like really prevalent on like the 360. But yeah, I think now that I've spent obviously more time with it enough to actually beat it for once. I don't know, man. I think I'm with you. I remember enjoying what I did play of it, like when I first got it for PS4, and I had the same thing happen, like, as to what happened with me on the PC version. Like I played a small portion, put it to rest, moved on to something else. And I wish that I gave it more attention at that time. And even this time around, I was focused on it, but like I still feel like I was distracted.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about that game that maybe doesn't translate that well today. It's kind of like what you were saying about how like it was really relevant to that time period where it was something so unique and different. And it kind of launched a lot of indie games that were kind of similar to that or similar to Bastion back then.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will agree with us on that. So, overall, I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was good, but I don't know if I would ever really go back and play it again. I think that's kind of a
Yeah.
general consensus on the game.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had a similar start with the game that you had as well, too. When it came out, I bought it on the 360, and I'm not even sure what it was about that game that got me to buy it in the first place, but I'm trying to remember if I just bought it or if I just ended up acquiring it through Games with Gold. I'm pretty sure I bought it. And when I got it, I fired it up. I played it for about 10 minutes, and I was just like, eh. It wasn't like my kind of game at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of let it slide. I just left it alone, and I never circled back to it. And when we talk about indie games, this game is something that a lot of people bring up, often. And I guess you kind of have to be there in that time period again to understand why, because for me, like, there's a lot of like cool stuff happening, but none of it was executed all that well, in my opinion. Like, I really enjoyed the way the levels unfurled and kind of built themselves as you're going around from place to place. And I thought that was really clever. But then they leave like all these little holes for you to fall off of. And like, for this type of game where the controls are maybe not as precise as they should be, that's kind of like, fucking the player over, I feel. Especially when you're in a battle where things start getting really hectic and you're focusing on rolling and dodging to get away from these characters. And next thing you know, the ground is, no longer underneath you, either because there's a hole in it or you just rolled off the edge because your controller didn't put you quite as left as you thought it would.
Yeah, I think you really kind of zoned in on a couple really good points there. Like, one is, again, kind of going back to this idea that this game was more relevant when it came out, and I really think that it was, and here's why. Back then, a lot of those kind of indie games that we've, kind of grown to understand and see now, they just weren't around back then. And if they were, I didn't know what they were. So Bastion, I think, really set the stage for how can we get this really unique indie game to come out, just kind of appear, and everybody just like loved it at the time because it was that unique. It was just like a really accessible, like, unique game, and it really shows you what the world is all about, which is like rebuilding the Bastion, and like the idea of the world building, rebuilding itself or forming in front of you, again, kind of builds on the concept of like, this game is about rebuilding and mainly just kind of focusing on the Bastion itself. But it's a bizarre game, like, in a lot of ways. Like, you're playing like the art style is good, the colors pop. It's a really nice looking game. It plays quite well. Like, the controls seem fine. I didn't notice anything that really kind of pissed me off, except for, falling down holes, just like you had complained about. That's definitely something that grinds my gears. But you have to work with it. And I don't know, man. It's just odd. It's an odd story. It's kind of loose, like, where you kind of get what's going on, but other times you're like, wait, what? Like, who's this? Why am I like bringing them back to the Bastion? And I felt like there was a lot of that going on, and that kind of bothered me because I didn't feel like I had a good grasp of like what was truly going on and the story. And I think that really bugs me when I play games and I don't really like get it. So then I feel like I'm forced to have to like go through the game like not really ever knowing. And some people might look at that and be like, well, I mean, it's not that complicated. But like, I'm just one of those people. I'm like that with movies too. Like, if it's not told in a certain way, sometimes I have a hard time like understanding things.
Well, there were a lot of details that were in some optional quests that kind of developed the backstory of what was happening. And so when you're at the Bastion, you have there's the bull that you can go to.
Yep.
There's a pot, I think it was, like some kind of pottery.
Yep.
That you can go to that does this whole
like a cauldron or something.
Something like that, yeah. And then towards the very end of the game, there's a bed that you can go up to as well too. And when you go into those, you trigger a memory sequence that starts with battles, and you go through 20 stages of battles that get progressively more and more difficult. And there's a lot of backstory that's told through those battles. The problem that I had with those is they're told through the narration and the narrator, who's a whole nother topic that we need to talk about. But they're such hectic battles that it's really difficult to focus on what's being said and focus on the gameplay at the same time. And that is kind of one of the problems that I had with the game. There's a lot going on, and they're trying to do exposition at the same time as gameplay. And normally I'm all for that. Like, I don't mind there being a story going on while I'm playing the game, because if I'm sitting and watching a, Hideo Kojima cutscene that's 20 minutes long, I might just take a nap. But if it's a, some kind of you're involved in the story, I think that's more engaging with the player. The problem is that there was so much going on for me that even with subtitles on, I couldn't keep track of what was actually happening.
Wait, you had subtitles on?
I had subtitles on in addition to the voiceover. Yeah.
Wow.
Because you know what, for me, like, I don't always play in the same environment. I usually will, with games, I'll put subtitles on a lot because there's a couple reasons. First of all, I have hearing damage. So, sometimes I don't hear things quite right. If it's on the screen at the same time, it makes it a little bit easier for me to make sure that I'm following along. Secondly, sometimes I play with no volume at all. If I'm in, like, I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, like if I'm playing in a portable mode, I might not be in a situation where I can have the volume up loud.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair and understandable. Yep.
Yeah. So if subtitles are an option in a game, I will almost always turn them on.
Yeah. And I think you're right. We need to talk about this narrator for a minute here, because
let's get into it.
Really, really clever, by the way, really clever. I liked it. But again, I don't know if I loved it, and here's why. I loved the fact that, like, you would do certain things, like maybe you would fall off the map and he would say something kind of sarcastic and clever. That stuff was great, because it was kind of like this, it added humor to the situation, because it's a fairly serious game. And then I liked, the way that, he's telling the story as you go, but there are times that, he'll say stuff and you just don't really understand, like, what it kind of pertains to. I found like that it happened a lot. And then I also found that this is actually something Lauren pointed out. I feel like his voice didn't really match with what you're doing. And what she meant by that, and I began to think about it a little bit more myself after she mentioned it, but the style of his speaking and the style of his tone and all of that stuff just didn't seem fitting for like a sort of colorful, cutesy fairy tale kind of situation, because I feel like the game kind of it's very colorful and bright, and like I said, it's fairly serious, but there was just something that just seemed like a little off about it, and I think that kind of bugged me a little bit.
To me, it seems like the narrator's out of a Western.
Yes.
The kid walks into the saloon. Shit like that, like just the inflection that he had and everything, and the way he spoke, and the word choicing, the word choices as well too. Like I came across as very much a Western kind of feel. Yeah, but it clashed with the fantasy elements, I felt.
I think that's really what I was trying to say.
And there's a lot of his narration that came across as very disjointed to me as well too. For example, there were scenes where he would start a sentence, and you can kind of tell, like, if you stayed down that same path, he would complete it very quickly thereafter. But because of the nature of the game, it kind of rewards exploration. So you want to be able to backtrack to certain areas that maybe you couldn't reach before, or maybe they were locked off until you cleared all the enemies out. So you'd be starting down this path, and he would be like, the kid doesn't know what to think about this situation. And then you would stop and turn around and go back looking for, tonics or whatever. And maybe you'd run into a couple more enemies, and a few minutes would pass. And then you would circle back, realize that you're at a dead end. You turn around and go back the way you were going. And then he would finish his thought. He'd be like, but he has a pretty good clue. And by that point, I've forgotten that there was a like dangling sentence, like I've forgotten that he started a thought but never finished it. So it's like, what the fuck is he talking about? This is minutes after it was originally said. And I think that that threw me off as well. on more than one occasion, and it kind of took away from what was happening in the game.
I agree. And I think, again, the more I think about things and the more I think about this game, I'm glad that I played it, and there were parts that I experienced that I really enjoyed. And I recommend it to somebody who wants to experience what it was like to play a unique indie game back in 2011 or 12, I think is when it came out.
11.
So if you want to understand how, this game in a lot of ways kind of launched, or at least in my opinion, launched a lot of indie games that we kind of see today. I think it's great. Wait for it to go on sale. You might love it, you might hate it, or you might be like us where you kind of enjoyed it, but you just didn't really, that's all it really kind of did.
Before we wrap up, I do want to talk a little bit about the gameplay and the battle system about the game too. What'd you think about that?
Gameplay and battle system. One thing I liked was some of the weapons were definitely cool. I found myself really kind of going back to the sword, the war sword, I think it was called, or the war blade. I like that one a lot because I like swords, and I like being able to kind of button mash a weapon. And I feel like you could really do that with that particular one. And then I liked the mortar, actually, because that was really good for getting those fucking plants that shoot seeds at you from far away.
Oh, God, those things sucked.
Yep. So I had fun with that. There was a couple weapons that I literally did not use. I used maybe in the beginning, and I never went back to them again. The hammer, I think I used maybe one more time, and I was like, no, this thing sucks compared to everything else now.
Huh. See, I had a different experience with that. I ended up using the hammer pretty much exclusively for the whole game. And then I had the bow and arrow. So basically everything you start with, I kept going back to. And it's kind of weird because the game, throws all these different weapons at you in different spots. But I feel like for the most part, when you give you a new weapon, it's not really a good place to use it. I'm trying to think of one example. To give you this gun, like a shotgun or something.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I felt like it was a really poor place to have that shotgun become available to you. They force you to use it. You don't really have a choice. And, then you're surrounded by these enemies, and it does a bad job of killing them. It's not selling me on the weapon. Whereas the cannon or the mortar that you were talking about, I think that was a better introduction to the weapon overall. And then towards the end of the game, they give you, it's the Calamity Cannon or something.
Yep.
And I really I kind of dug that, and I started investing some money and some upgrades into that. And I think I got it pretty powerful. And didn't they take it away from you at the end of the game? I feel like I put all this time into upgrading it, and then at the very, very end, I wasn't even able to use it.
You know what? I don't know if I recall that. But I will say I'm glad you brought this up, because I found that there were some weapons that you would unlock that were actually really convenient in terms of the timing of when you unlock them, that you could use them right away. Such as the mortar. I found I was like, wow, this is great. I can now get these fucking plants from far away. But then you're right. There were other times where there was a weapon that, the shotgun, for example, or certain other weapons I can't remember off the top of my head, that just did not seem useful. However, I did like the fact that you could go through certain parts of the game, and you could go to an arsenal shop or whatever in the middle of a level and swap your weapons.
And every time that arsenal showed up, I would always switch back to my original loadout.
Yeah. I found myself sticking with a pretty similar loadout most of the time. And, that was fine. But at the same time, I felt like there's quite a variety of weapons that I just didn't use. And I think I didn't use them because they just weren't all that useful. So I felt like a lot of them went to waste, and I didn't even upgrade what I was using the most that much. In fact, I only upgraded a couple things literally once or twice, and I got through the game just fine. So the other thing that kind of bugged me, because maybe I just didn't understand how to use it, but the potion shop, where you could choose whatever potions you wanted to use. I didn't understand how the fuck that worked. Were you trying to select which ones you wanted, or you just keep unlocking them and then they just automatically there was an element of gameplay there that I like literally did not understand, and it was
Are you talking about the distillery or?
Yes, distillery.
So the way the distillery worked was depending on what level your character was, it opened up basically a potion that would apply a permanent buff, but the buff could be changed out. So you could have different buffs to your character, like 50% more health, or there was one where I ended up using anytime I reflected a shot, I used the shield to counter a shot and send it back to the opponent. It would give me more health, things like that. But not all those buffs were like immediately available to you. You had to go to the other potion shop, which I can't think of the name of at the moment, and like buy them. Like you could pick them up in the world, or you could just unlock them, but you had to like buy them to activate them. And then you would go back to the distillery to actually add them to those slots, and you could swap, which I think was good. Like you weren't committed to just one thing.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to explain it, but like I still feel like when I went into the distillery, like you would click on, like there would be like the cabinet where you see him reaching for whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And you would select something, but like the way that that you would navigate the menus of what you were doing, I feel like it wasn't like taking what you click on and putting it into a slot that you can clearly see that this is what you're going to be swapping it to. There was something going on there that I would have to like literally show you in person.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it didn't make any fucking sense. So every time I went to the distillery, I would like fuck around with shit, leave. And then the voice would be like, oh, apple tart goes down in such a sour way or something like that. And then I'm like, all right, did I just consume that or did I equip it? Like I literally left not knowing what I did in that distillery every single time.
Oh my God.
So I didn't go in there. I was like, fuck it. As long as I can heal myself, like, I guess like that's good enough. But
yeah,
it's like when I don't understand like a part of a game, it really bothers me because then I feel like I have to like YouTube something or like look it up. And I think that it took away from some of my joy from some of those shops and some of the areas that you visit in the Bastion.
I think the joy for those areas is supposed to come in trial and error with combinations of those items. You know, this potion plus this potion gives you the ability to do X, Y, Z, and you know that sort of thing. Or even when you're unlocking different levels within each weapon's upgrade path, you know, they give you two choices. You could do maybe 50% more damage or 10% more critical, you know, things of that ilk. So, you know, there's always this element of trial and error with the game. But for me, like that was never a rewarding part of it. I never really got into like the min-maxing of the character. I didn't spend a lot of time with the proving grounds trying to max out all my weapons. I didn't spend a lot of time trying to get every single collectible possible because my goal, like the entire time I'm playing this game, it feels like it's going to be a new game plus, and my goal was just to get to the end. You know?
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate takeaway from this game is like I felt like there were certain aspects that I enjoyed, but like, you know, towards the middle of the game, I was like, all right, like, let me just get this fucking game done. And like, as soon as you slip into that like little container of like, I just need to finish this game, like, it's not a good sign.
It's at that point, it's a chore. It's not
it's
reward.
a chore. And I felt like I was doing it for the show and I wasn't really doing it for me anymore. And like, look, I didn't hate the game, but I think it was a representation of where I'm at with gaming, and I'm realizing more and more every year that goes by that as much as I want to enjoy a game as much as other people did, I simply can't sometimes. And I'm starting to realize that that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not like a popular game. And I know that sounds so fucking like childish, but it's not, because like a lot of us want to enjoy like the hype of a game. We want to enjoy a game like The Last of Us or Uncharted 4 or like some of these big international successes. But sometimes like you just don't. And it doesn't mean that you're not getting it. It's just not the game for you. And I think that really makes your gaming experience overall so much healthier when you can start narrowing down the games that you truly know you're going to enjoy, or just trying out games. If you don't like it, delete it, or like return it, trade it in, whatever. But or do what Joe does in GameFly stuff.
Yeah,
because like that's probably the best way you could like just play trial and error.
Well, it's certainly one of the most cost effective ways. Of getting to play games as long as you spend the time with them. But I mean, like that's something that's taken me a long time to come to terms with. It's okay to abandon a game. You know, and especially when it's a game that you spend money on, like that's a really difficult mental crutch to get around. And, sometimes you get into the hype, you buy into the hype, you buy something and it just doesn't work out. And you're like, oh, fuck, now I got to beat this game so I get my money's worth. No.
Yeah, no, like sometimes I think it's okay. Like, and I'm pretty sure there's an article that came out some time ago talking about just this, realizing that if you buy a game, maybe you won't finish it, and maybe that's okay. Like maybe you just have to swallow that bullet of the $15 you spent, and like, you don't finish it. And you just have to kind of get past that and realize it's not for me. And yes, I did buy it digitally, so I guess there's really nothing I can do with it. But I guess that's just one of the avenues that you have to go down. You're taking somewhat of a risk. Yeah.
You buy a bottle of wine and maybe it doesn't work out and you end up dumping it. It happens.
Yeah, like a fine Chianti. I couldn't help myself. Like you laid that up for me, man. I was like, I'm going to slam dunk this right now.
I like it. All right. So, final thoughts on Bastion.
Final thoughts. This game is about rebuilding a bastion, collecting shards, and using a variety of weapons. That is my ultimate takeaway.
Did you save the bastion and rebuild it, or did you leave it and run away?
I believe I rebuilt it.
I ran away.
Of course you did.
Well, the narrator's like the whole time he's like, well, I don't know, but maybe if you rebuild this thing, it'll come back and happen all over again. I'm like, all right, fuck it.
Well, see, that's the thing is like I often have like this sort of good guy approach to things, and like even though that might not have been like a good guy decision, I felt like it was. So I was just like, let me do what I would do like if a house burnt down. I'm just gonna rebuild it. And
that was such a half-assed like a thing, like part of the game, in my opinion too. Like
it kind of was.
You have no choice throughout this entire game, and then suddenly you get a choice to save the bad guy, and you get a choice of whether or not you actually want to rebuild society. And like, where the fuck did all that come from? And how does that have any bearing on anything? It didn't. It didn't.
Speaking of that, one more final thing I want to add here. I didn't really love the fact that like the Bastion kept getting like destroyed and shit. Mm-hmm. Like it's like just when you rebuild it I think it got destroyed like 3 times that you keep going back there and like something's going on with it. And
that sounds about right.
And I get it. Like that's what the game's about, but I don't know, man. Like I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't love it. That's the honest truth.
Yeah. Thumbs in the middle for me. I think it, had its ups, it had its downs. I don't regret playing it, but I'm glad I'm done with it. I don't know if I can recommend it to somebody that's never played it before. I think that if you've played the game, you have a love for it, and I think it's going to be like one of those nostalgia things. But for me, in 2019, I really just I don't know. Yeah, I'm very ambivalent to it. I'm just very apathetic to the game in general.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like I said before, if I could recommend it to anybody, it would be somebody who just really enjoys like very unique indie games, and that is me. But and I'm still glad I played it because I did want to experience it. However, I think that would be the only audience at this point that would be able to truly get anything out of it. I think your average like weekend gamer who's just playing like shooters and shit, this is not the game for them.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, so tell me about Control. Like, you've been really dabbling with this game for a while.
Well, I mean, I unfortunately kind of had to put it on the back burner so we could finish up Bastion for this week. And I've been a little sidetracked with some other things too. But it is a really fun, surprising game. It caught me completely off guard. I really didn't pay much attention to it when it was originally announced. And it just kind of like flew under the radar. And that's something like I'm trying to get better about is like paying attention to like when games are announced so that I can kind of focus on something that I think will be really good and kind of follow it along. But at the same time, I kind of appreciate like that element of surprise. Like, oh, holy shit, where did this come from? I have to have it. And Control was very much that kind of game for me. You know, I really enjoyed playing Quantum Break. Alan Wake has been on my list of must-play games for a very long time. I still have not played it yet. Max Payne was, you know, not something I spent a lot of time with. I kind of dabbled in it, but I think that maybe at some point I wouldn't mind going back to it, just to kind of see where Remedy kind of got their start. But man, Control oozes with like just so much charisma and style from top to bottom. There's, you know, a lot of confusion in the game when you start about like what's actually going on and what's happening. But the long story short is you're in a house and you go into this place with a mission in mind. Like, you're not there by accident. You don't stumble across this by accident. You're there with a purpose. I still don't know what that purpose is yet. I'm still figuring that out. They don't reveal that to you right away, but your character goes in knowing something. And you're in a house that literally transforms before your eyes. Like, it has access to an alternate dimension or an alternate plane of existence. And there's ways to communicate with that plane of existence. And there's scientists in this building, which is operated by the Federal Bureau of Control, which is some kind of secret government agency, right? And they operate inside this house and try to experiment and figure out ways to gain access to this dimension and gain powers from this dimension. And there's all these different types of objects they call objects of power. And it's like the most ridiculous shit. Like, there's a carousel horse that gives you the ability to like dodge, I think. You know? Yeah, like you have to go and you tap into this thing's power. There's a rubber duck somewhere in this house that does something. I haven't found it yet. But it's just like all this like really like specific shit, and it unlocks more powers. And as you unlock these powers, you become more and more powerful yourself. So like, for example, one of the items gives you the ability to hold up a shield. Maybe it's the carousel horse. I'm mixing up what does what at this point. But you get basically a shield where you can block incoming fire from other enemies. And the shield is literally just grabbing as much debris that's around you and holding it up in front of you. And the game is so gorgeously animated that all this debris is swirling around you. It's not just like the steady wall. Like, you have like chunks of concrete. Like, you know the scene in The Matrix where they go into the lobby and they have that huge shootout?
Yeah, of course.
This game is that.
That's amazing.
And
that's
imagine,
a huge selling point.
imagine that you have a power to take all of that shit that you just shut off the walls and hold it in front of you and like use it as a shield, or pick it up and launch it at people using telekinesis.
I need to play this game.
You fucking need to play this game, dude. It is Drew's definition of a cool game.
Yeah, it certainly sounds that way. I mean, who doesn't want to be Neo?
Yeah. But like it goes beyond just that, like, because there's some weird shit happening, and it brings in like one of my all-time favorite video game styles, which is the full motion video. They have actors doing like presentations. Like, there's this one guy who's a scientist doing all the research, and his story is told through a series of videos that you find as like unlockable collectibles, basically. And when you're watching these videos, it's an actor actually performing, like, you know, talking about the experiments that they're doing and telling a story about what's happening. And you're kind of seeing his world unfold through all these disjointed experiments. And the actor is great. Like, he's got like these subtleties down in such a perfect way. And games don't use actors and actresses anymore. They have them for, you know, voice actors, but everything is told through CGI within the game or within the gameplay or like rendered scenes or things like that. Nobody uses like FMVs anymore. And I just have like these beloved memories of playing Wing Commander 3 or playing Command & Conquer, games that told a story through actual actors and actresses in front of a camera. And this game fucking nails it. And I should have seen it coming because Remedy did it with Quantum Break too. And they had some pretty big names in Quantum Break.
No, apparently, just to interject here,
Hmm.
Control is supposed to be like graphically pretty astounding, right?
So it's really a game that's made for PC, because it uses a technology called ray tracing that only the newest graphic cards and PCs are really able to harness. And it's like breaking it down to like the finest of detail when it comes to reflections and how light bounces off of objects. Digital Foundry did an excellent video kind of doing a side-by-side comparison between what ray tracing looks like turned on and ray tracing looks like turned off on a computer, and how it compares to the console versions. And they go into like frame rates and things like that. And like it's the difference between like a red telephone on a desk casting its red shadow onto objects surrounding it, like that kind of level of detail. You know, when you walk into a room, you're not just getting reflections from the source of light, but you're also getting reflections from the light bouncing off of other objects and reflecting off of those objects. So like think about like, I'm trying to think of a good example. You know, when you're looking at your desk, like if you have, you know, a brightly colored object on your desk, that brightly colored object is going to cast some of that color onto the desk itself.
Okay.
And ray tracing is doing that at like just this absurd detail level. It's also like looking at reflections on objects that are reflective, but maybe not necessarily smooth. So not like a mirror, but maybe like some kind of a textured wall. Or like if you go into a building, you go into let's use that Matrix building again, for example. The concrete on those walls has like a shine to it, right? And if you were in front of that wall in real life, that would be a reflective surface, but not like crystal clear. It would just show you kind of like your outline kind of like faded a little bit, but you'd be able to see yourself technically in that wall. And ray tracing is doing shit like that. And then doing it when that wall is broken too.
Ooh.
So it's very dynamic, you know. It really needs to be seen to be believed. On the console, it doesn't do it to the same extent, but that kind of reflective nature is still there. And I'm playing it on the Xbox One X. And this is one of the best looking games I've ever played.
Okay. That's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah, and I mean it, like genuinely, because there's some really gorgeous animation going on here, especially when you're in a firefight and things are exploding and shattering. You know, it's not, you don't just shoot a guy and he just drops. Like shit happens around him, or sometimes the enemy might not be completely like based in reality. So there's some kind of effect that goes with that too. Now, unfortunately, there have been some frame rate issues and slowdown and stuttering on the Xbox One X, which was patched recently. I have not had an opportunity to play the game since the patch.
Okay.
But it's supposed to address a lot of those issues.
So that could be pretty exciting then. You have like something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. And actually, it kind of leads me into another game that I've been playing too, because I started playing Dead Cells because I went to play Control, and Control had to download that update, and it was 2.5 gigabytes, and I just wanted to play something right then and there, and I didn't have a lot of time. So, yeah.
Well, I think you sold me on the game, though. I mean, like, what a description. I mean, I've only seen like a little bit of like gameplay on Twitter, like, you know, in the form of GIFs for the most part. Mm-hmm. Or GIFs for you folks out there that, you know, believe that it's the same thing as peanut butter. But hey, that's another thing. Who buys Peter Pan peanut butter anyway?
We do when it's on sale.
Do you really? Peter Pan?
If it's on sale. We're usually a Skippy household, but if Peter Pan is cheaper, we'll buy Peter Pan.
Fair enough. But
we try to stick to the natural kind, the one that doesn't have like added sugars.
Yep.
So
that's important.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I just want to take peanut butter and spread it all over Control, I guess. But
that's a little weird, but go for it.
It is weird. No, this sounds good, man. Obviously, I'm hearing a ton of people talking about this game. It's the hype is real. It's just not something that I'm going to try and add to the backlog now. But you know, at some point, I would love to at least try it. You know, and to see if I would enjoy it.
I mean, I recommend definitely checking it out next time you're over. I don't know that I would recommend you purchasing it for the PlayStation 4 non-Pro model, because from what I've heard, that's one of the systems that has the biggest issues with the frame rate dropping. Now again, they've been patching it. They're trying to address these issues. But at the end of the day, this is a really graphically intense game. And it clearly was not designed with the Xbox One, the original one, and the original PlayStation 4 in mind. And I think it was a real indication of how we're coming out of this point in time where games are being developed with both systems in mind. Now developers are focusing on pushing the newest version of these systems as hard as they can. And the old stuff is getting left in the dust. And not every developer is going to be as responsive as Remedy is. And maybe Remedy can only do so much. It's hard to say. I haven't seen any updated comparison videos. But if it's something that you're even considering, check out the Digital Foundry video first. They break it down just as they do, and that those guys, they don't fuck around.
Yeah, no, clearly not. And I think that we are absolutely at that stage now where our current consoles are slowly becoming not really obsolete, but like they're getting to that point where, you can see now, I think to Joe's point as well, that a lot of these games are being developed with the PS5 and the next Xbox in mind. I mean, you can just tell, like, they're just getting to that point where you can feel like your console can't handle some of these games as well as they did, before.
Yeah. Yep, it's true.
But, that's the nature of the development stage. We're just kind of reaching that point, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have new consoles in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think Xbox... the new one, was it Project Scarlet? I think they're looking at launching sometime in 2020. So it's happening.
Right around the corner.
Yeah, pretty quickly.
Cool. Well, I'm excited about this game, man. Like I said, I'm going to have to watch some more videos, not just some GIFs, and just kind of maybe at least watch like a review, like a video review, and just kind of get an idea of a little bit more of the weirdness behind the game, because I remember you kind of spouting off in Discord a few times, like how strange the game is. And,
it's so fucking weird. That
really intrigued me because, like, when you look at the game from a surface level and a face value, the last thing you're going to think of is the unicorn thing that you spoke about, or just anything bizarre. It just looks like kind of like this action game with this sci-fi element. And
no, it's very heavily story based in a good way. You're unraveling this place and fixing it. And one thing that I got to give them credit for, like, I don't know if you've ever watched Twin Peaks. It's not a show that I've spent a lot of time with, but I'm familiar with like the general nature of it, where it's just like a mind fuck. Like, this game is inspired by Twin Peaks. There's no possible way it's not.
Okay.
So
yeah, I like weird games, and I think it's important that this game does have a story and that it is kind of weird, because if you think about it, if it didn't have that, it might just end up being a game, or it would have been a game where you just fucking do, what you had said before, and then it doesn't really have any substance. And that's something that's cool for a short while, but long term, it's not a good thing. So
agreed. You've been playing Strider lately, huh?
I've been playing Strider. Some folks know, if you're in Discord, I've tried a new method to games. I'm doing a snowball effect, I like to call it, and I made a list of games from shortest to longest in terms of play length. And I chose Strider because it's a pretty short game. I think it clocks in at about 5.5 to 6 hours on average if you just do the core game. I believe some people have finished it, in less time, but given the fact that it was, I believe, the smallest game on my list, I started with that, and it's been treating me really well, man. This is a game that came out in 2014. Japan is known as Strider Hiru, or I still can't really say his real name very well, but that's what it's called in Japan. Nevertheless, Strider here in America, and it was kind of one of those games that like hit the scene. Like, some people paid attention to it, some people didn't. Very kind of short-lived. It doesn't really have like that well-known of a community of people that are playing it. I think it was known as one of those games that just kind of came out, people played it and moved on. So,
are you familiar with the origins of Strider?
For the most part, and from what I understand, that this game kind of is an ode to the original Strider, and it's basically like a revamped, high def, colorful comic book kind of art style. tribute to what Strider was all about, which was pretty high difficulty. Lots of enemies, like lots of fast movement, and that's exactly what this game is all about.
Yep.
And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I've realized that this is a game, unlike Bastion, that I am absolutely enjoying. Like, there's no part about this game that's like, I just want to like beat it. I want to play this game. Like, it's fun. And I think that is the number one thing that I'm realizing now with games. Like, a game needs to be fun to keep me going back, and this is a game that is the definition of fun. It's so, I don't know how to describe it. It's exactly what I look for in cool games. It's punchy, it's loud, it's super stylish, it's colorful, like the spark effects, like just the effects overall in the game are just like really intriguing. The story is kind of meh, but like it doesn't matter because all that matters is that you're just slicing and dicing up your enemies as you're running like a fucking Naruto like ninja. Like that classic like anime run where you're kind of like leaning forward and your arms are kind of back. So like just everything about like the design of Strider and the level design, it just all fits. This is a game that is meant to be played quickly. There's a lot of strategy with like jumping around, and you can't block, which is really frustrating at first. But once you realize that this game is about literally dodging, jumping around, sliding, and doing all these like cool moves to like escape lasers and bullets and attacks, that adds to the challenge, and that challenge is pretty prevalent right away. I remember like the first time I loaded this game up, I was like, oh fuck, like I can't play this right now. I need to like be ready for this. And I played it back in 2014 for, again, like fucking 15 to 30 minutes, put it to rest, and I was like, it's hard. I need to be in the mood for this. And I never went back to it. And, because I was a lazy piece of shit when it came to stuff like that. But now that I have so much more experience under my belt with all of the Dark Souls series and Sekiro and just harder games, like I now have this mentality, like, bring it on. Like this, I can't beat this boss in 3 times. Not a fucking problem. We're going to go a 4th time, and we're going to go a fucking 20th time if necessary until I beat this fucking thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm like more, I'm stronger now as a gamer to like hard games. And I think that you do kind of have to build up like a tolerance for that. You have to grow patient. You have to understand that it's worth the grind to get there. And once you start like beating some pretty tough bosses in this game, you just feel great and you get more unlockables. And I'm trying to think of what else to say. I mean, it's just, like I said, the story's kind of like not really anything to pay much attention to. It's more just about like, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to cut some dudes up. There's no blood. It's more of like a sort of sci-fi robotic kind of feel to it. Yeah. So the enemies are kind of robotic, and it just has that sort of future sort of feeling about it, because I'm pretty sure it does take place in the future.
Yeah, I mean, these types of games really are not known for having deep stories.
No.
They're about gameplay and thrills and awesomeness and doing cool shit, and that's kind of about it. And that's fine. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I'm finding it to just be very refreshing. Coming from so many games of today's time, the Red Dead Redemptions, the Sekiros, like all of these games that are just so much, so much more in depth and more detailed and just more of a chore. This game is literally the opposite of that. It really harkens back to what games used to be, which was just fast, fun, furious, and not that serious. And that's exactly what Strider's all about. So I
like it.
I couldn't recommend it enough to, I would say, just about anybody. I feel like this game's very accessible. Even if you don't really like action games, it's just good, classic fun, and it looks really good. It's like one of those, I remember for like the PS3, like when it first came out, there were so many like native 1080p games that were like true 1080p that just looked amazing. I'm pretty sure that this game might be in that same category, because there's no blemishes, there's no slowdown, there's no artifacts, there's nothing. This game runs like butter. Yeah. Pure butter. Even with like everything going on the screen at once, like there's just, it's one of the smoothest, prettiest games I think I've played in a while.
Interesting. Yeah. And this was originally put out for the PlayStation 3, right? Are you playing on PS3 or the PS4 version?
So I'm playing on PS4, but this game came out for PS3, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Windows.
Oh, it is on the Xbox One. Okay.
Yes. So I would grab this if you find it free, like a games of gold kind of thing, or if it pops up for like a couple bucks, I would snatch it up. Because I would find it hard for anybody to almost not like this game. And I know that's kind of a bold statement, but I don't know, man. Like, it's just so cool. Like, there's so many moments where I was like, this game is just awesome. It's just really, it's on my cool games, my Will's cool game list for sure. It's been granted the opportunity to enter that list.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to keep an eye out for a sale.
Yeah, and to anybody listening, check it out. Watch some videos on YouTube, see what you think.
So, Will, we have a lot of other topics that we wrote down, and we are like kind of running towards the end of the show. Like, what else do you want to talk about, man? Like, we got so many things.
We are running out of time.
Yeah, I just looked at the recording clock, and we're coming up in an hour, and so like, let's pick like maybe one or two more things, and then call it a night.
Sure. So I do want to mention just super quick, for folks that know about PT, that's the game that Hideo Kojima was creating with Guillermo del Toro. And it was supposed to be like a Silent Hills remake. But anyway, check out PT. You can't download it anymore. There's a big sort of like cult following with this game. But recently, somebody hacked the camera in the game. Now, if you don't know about this game, you're basically walking in a square in like a apartment or a house, just constantly in a square over and over again, down hallway after hallway after hallway. And it's a really scary fucking game. Okay. And this guy hacked the camera, and it turns out that I guess like the lady that kind of like stalks you in this game is stalking you the entire time. So she's behind you the entire time, and you don't realize that unless you hack the game like this dude did. And it was one of the most frightening discoveries that like has ever happened in, I think, probably any game, because once you play the game, or if you've ever played it, you'll understand why it's so creepy. But basically, like, you feel like you're being followed in the game, but if you turn around, like, she's not there. But once this dude hacked it, like I said, it turns out that I guess she's following you the entire fucking time. So like people, like, this article came out on Twitter and just blew up and went viral, and I'm pretty sure it was like trending. And of course I saw it and I was like, holy shit, this is just horrific. And it might be hard for people to relate to this if they haven't played it, but if you watch some videos on the game and then you look up the hack, it'll send chills down your spine, man. And it's just such a creepy thing to know that they programmed the game essentially to where she's following you the entire time.
And it just drives me crazy that like this isn't available anymore, because it sounds like people are finding like more and more ways to fuck with this game and uncover new things, and nobody can get it. Like, I never even heard of this thing until like we started doing this podcast and you started talking about it. And
it's such a strange thing, man. I mean, like I said, it came out years ago. I forget which year. And it was released as just like a demo. And I didn't know that when you deleted it, like, I mean, you could re-download it at the time, but I must have deleted it right when they were getting rid of it. So when I went to go and try and get it again, it wouldn't let me. And I was like, oh, fuck, no. And it wasn't such a bad thing because the game is like literally like horrifying. Like I remember having Tom, who we've had on the show before, play the game in broad daylight at his house. And he's like, dude, I don't think I can do this. Like, it's that fucking scary. And I know it sounds weird because you're just walking through hallways, but I promise you, if you play that game with headphones and you even play it in broad daylight, it will scare the fuck out of you. And I'm not going to go too much into depth because I don't want to spoil it, and I don't want to like waffle on about it for too much longer because I know we're running out of time. But when you have time, just, I don't know, watch a video and you'll maybe get somewhat of a feeling of how scary this game really is.
Yeah, I'm not really into like horror games, but maybe I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not either. The only reason I tried it is because it had Hideo Kojima's name all over it, and I was a big Silent Hills fan at the time, so I wanted to see where it was going. And actually, it was supposed to have Norman Reedus, ironically, as the main character,
Really?
Who, as we know, is now the main character in Death Stranding.
So he's been working with Hideo Kojima for a lot longer than just Death Stranding. And
yes.
it's interesting.
But if we were to pick one more topic, Drew, what do you think about one of two things here? Your backlog spreadsheet.
Okay.
Or the Genesis Mini?
Well, I can kind of just touch base on both fairly quickly.
Okay, let's start with this. Are we buying the Genesis Mini?
I really want to.
Oh God. I was hoping you'd say something like that. I could just feel it. I was like, I know he wants it.
I don't have a strong bond with the Sega Genesis itself because I never owned one. All of my experiences with the Genesis were through playing it at either my neighbor's house across the street from me or my friend Dave's house. So I kind of have everything filtered through the lens of their experiences with it. And all my experiences with it kind of are shared experiences. But the system, I think is a pivotal system in gaming history. And everything that I've seen about the Genesis Mini has been that this is by far and away the best take on a mini system that we've had yet, including better than the Nintendo versions.
Wow.
The attention to detail and the love and care that went into this really just take it to the next level. The PlayStation one is not even in the conversation. It hasn't been since it was released. But this one is kind of like a must-have. But here's the thing. I have a bit of a budget when it comes to buying games. Like it's not strict, but it's limited. And I've had some other expenses that have been coming up. I'm going to be at New York Comic Con next weekend. So I've been I've been being very cheap with my game purchases and trying to be very choosy with what I buy lately until after Comic Con when I have a little bit more free money. So the idea of coming up with like $90 to buy this thing right now is kind of out of my means. And to make matters even worse, how many times have these mini consoles gone on sale within a month of release?
You mean gone down lower in price?
Yeah. It's frequent,
I guess I wasn't aware, to be completely honest. I was not aware of that.
The PlayStation console is a bit of an outlier because it's kind of crashed and burned. So maybe I'm looking at that in a different way. The other ones, now that I think about it, the Nintendo ones never really dropped in price because they were always high in demand, and Nintendo rarely puts their shit on sale. So maybe I'm just letting the PlayStation Mini kind of sour my taste on this. But like, I bought the PlayStation Mini for $100, and it dropped down to $60 pretty quickly, and I've seen it on sale for as low as $25.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm keeping that in the back of my mind when it comes to Genesis Mini. Now, depending on where I buy it, I could do price matching up to a certain point. So I'm not like too stressed about it. But yeah, it's definitely a system that I want. But I also I'm trying to think about when I'm going to have time to play those games and which games am I going to play. Like, I'm probably going to buy it. I'm going to turn on Sonic the Hedgehog, which is a game that I played dozens of times on multiple systems, and that'll be the game that I play the most, and I probably won't spend a lot of time with the other ones. I'm setting and tempering my expectations because I know this is going to be mostly a collectible item for me, and it's not going to spend a lot of time plugged in and hooked up.
Sure. I'll say a couple things here, just real quick for humor's sake. First of all, Gunstar Heroes is on here. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then second of all, Sonic the Hedgehog's belly on the front of this fucking box, dude, looks like he just ate like a dozen donuts and then like sat down and then like lifted his shirt up. Like,
oh my God.
Why is it so like his belly resembles Donald Trump's face, but without a face? It's like Donald Trump's like skin.
On the mini box?
Yeah, no, if you go to the website, the actual website for this console, right? and you look at the list of games, it shows you like the actual covers of the games.
Yeah.
And if you look at Sonic the Hedgehog, the original Sonic the Hedgehog, his goddamn belly looks like one Donald Trump.
Oh my God.
Why is it so tan? I mean, I know he's in like the tropics, but like...
It's because he goes fast. God
damn, dude. Like his belly is just so round.
This is a great lineup of games, though. Like just to kind of...
It is.
Like just looking through it, there's some really awesome games. Strider is in here. I know you just linked that to me.
Yep.
There's Castlevania Bloodlines, Toe Jam and Earl, Comic Zone, which is phenomenally difficult.
And by the way, I love the Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition box.
Oh yeah.
Like, this literally defines like the 90s right here.
Yeah, it defines the Genesis too, because
it does.
That version only came out on the Genesis. It's not available on the Super Nintendo.
It did, and you know, it makes you want to wear like Bison shin guards.
Right. The problem is like, you know, they only include the 3-button controllers. And there's some games in this lineup that really do need the 6-button, particularly Street Fighter.
That's true. I actually did not think of that. It is only the 3.
I think Eternal Champions utilizes a 6-button as well. Virtual Fighter 2 might. So yeah, I mean, like I want it. Like no doubt about it. I want this, but I have to keep my expectations in check for not for the system, but for me.
Sure. No, that's very respectable.
Yeah.
And since we're ultra short on time, why don't we just do a quick sort of debriefing here on your spreadsheet that you've created for your backlog. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah,
so I kind of wanted to like start keeping track of something that would keep me accountable for my games and what I've been playing and what I've started and not finished. And it's very much a work in progress. But as it stands right now, I've been setting it up so that it lists the game title, the platform it's on. If I know the date that I started it, I'll add the date. And then if I complete it, I'll add the completion date as well too. And then I have a drop down, which goes from either not started, in progress, completed, or abandoned. And my plan with this is to kind of see which systems have the most games that are in progress, which ones are the most completed, and kind of keep track of how many games I've abandoned too. Now, when I say abandoned, I'm generally meaning like a game that I've quit playing for one reason or another. So like I have on my spreadsheet, Dandara is a game that I started on the Xbox One, and it was a Games Pass game. It was pulled from Games Pass. As I don't have any intentions of purchasing it right now, I consider that game abandoned. But a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, which I started in 2017, that's very much still in progress in my mind. So,
yes,
you know what I mean? God. Yeah. So
I didn't realize it was 2017 that you started that game.
I think that's when I got the PlayStation, was 2017. I'd have to actually talk to Dave because he sold me his when he bought a Pro. But I feel like it was 2017.
I mean, look, I'm in no place to judge because there are plenty of games that I started years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. But anyway, I'm a bit of a spreadsheet junkie for some reason, even though I absolutely hate math. But I just I have this thing for like organizing spreadsheets, and I love making them, and I like looking at data and how it's presented. It's just something that I enjoy for some sick fucked up reason. So I created a pivot table to take all the data from the backlog sheet and kind of spread it out in like this nice organized table that shows me how many games I have in progress and what system they're on. And I could take that information and make fancy charts out of it, graphs, and basically just show myself how much I fucking suck. Did I lose you?
No, but something happened to my recording on GarageBand, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
I think it might have recorded some of the show, but I don't know. Something happened.
Okay.
So that's the only reason I went silent. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll address that with Craig.
Yeah, thank God for Craig.
Thank God for Craig. So
what was I going to say? Oh, yes. So my last point here before we wrap this show up. I feel like I'm in the same boat, not with spreadsheets, but I spent a lot of time with looking up like how long to beat for like all of the games that I own for the most part. And I created this list that I've shared in the chit chat room. And I spent a long time doing that. And it's funny because like I tend to enjoy doing things like that versus playing a game.
Yeah.
I like to almost like brainstorm so much and plan and get ready. And then like when I'm getting ready to play Strider or a different game, I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me pause this real quick. Let me go get a snack.
Yeah.
And then like I go get a snack and then I come back down and then I check my phone and then I hit start and I'm like, oh man, now my hands are greasy. I got to clean my fucking hands. I got to go wash them, come back down. And I'm like, oh shit, I got to change the laundry. I'm like, change the laundry real quick. Yeah. Come back, play a little bit. And then I'm like, oh shit, Lauren's coming home in 20 minutes. All right, I'll play for 20 minutes real quick. All right, here we go. She gets home. She wants to watch something. I'm like, the fuck, man, I never have time for games. And that's literally my life. Dude, and it's completely my fault. It is, I'm going to say this on air. It is 100% my fault. I told you today, I've told people for years, and I told myself that I need to utilize my time better for games. And for everybody listening, please utilize your free time for games when you have the time.
Yeah.
Stop fucking around. Just play the game. And that's what I tell myself, and that's why I'm like 3 hours into Strider. So,
you know what? The thing that I think for me is the biggest difference maker is the phone. Put it away.
The phone's awful. You gotta toss it across the room, bro. Like
like for me, like I'll go down, I'll put it in the bedroom, and I'll sit on the sofa in the living room. So if I need to look at it, I have to get up.
Yeah. It's just crazy because when you have it next to you, not only do you have the temptation to just look at other shit, but sometimes you think like, oh, maybe I should like take a picture of this, or maybe I should record some of my gameplay, or maybe I should let me just look something up real quick about this game, like real quick, and then you look up something quote unquote real quick, and then 30 minutes goes by, and you're like, shit, and then you go into denial mode, or at least I do, and like I said, I will just start saying things to myself like, man, I don't fucking have time for anything anymore. And it's like I absolutely do. It's just you gotta toss your phone across the room and you gotta shut the world out, man. That's how you need to game in 2019.
Yeah, it's true. You're absolutely right, man. So that's I'm hoping that the spreadsheet will help keep me accountable and keep me focused and keep me from spending time on distractions. Because now I can see like in data form how much I'm like, not focusing on things. And I want to swing that direction in the other way. I want to get that chart so that it's no longer, one sliver of things in progress, or completed, and everything else is in progress. Like I want it to go the other way.
No, you're right. And I know you mentioned before that it can feel like work if you're not careful, and it can, but I think what we're doing is pretty smart. And I think that it's a good way for us to stay focused and just, make some bigger dents into what we have here. So I don't feel the slightest bit bad about it.
No, not at all. So, well, at this time, I think it's a good opportunity for us to wrap things up. We are over an hour at this point, and I know that Nikki has dinner ready. She sent me a message.
Her foot in the kitchen. Come on.
I got a message from her. She's like, dinner's ready.
She's like, Drew, the yams are getting cold.
The yams? Who the fuck makes yams?
I don't know. Like, I'm still trying to understand if it's the same thing as a sweet potato, but I don't think it is.
It is not. Although we do have sweet potatoes, so. Anyway,
dinner's not going to eat itself.
Well, that's for sure. I need to eat it because I'm hungry. Thank you, everybody, for downloading the show. Please subscribe if you're not already doing so. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at WDGRPodcast, at WDGRPodcast. Will, how can I find you?
Will_gear.
You can find me at ScienceStorm. And thank you, everybody who helped contribute to last week's episode. We really appreciate you guys sending in all your Dreamcast memories. We had a blast talking about the system. If you've missed that episode, go back. Check it out, episode 42. We really think you'll dig it, even though it's a couple weeks out now from the Dreamcast birthday. I think that was a really important episode. And one other final note, too, a programming note. This episode is being published on Friday. That will be our schedule for posting episodes going forward for the foreseeable future. It will change at some point in the next couple months, but for now, we're going to stick with Friday releases. So.
Yes.
And that does it for me. You got anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, man. I actually don't this time.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See ya.